Nobody wants to admit it, but one of the reasons why houses are so expensive is because of you. It's because of what you are demanding. This is not a house. This is a McMansion. This is not a house. This is a big house. Everybody likes to make the comparison that back in the 1950s, you could buy a house with one income. The part that they leave out is those homes were a whopping 800 square feet. They weren't giant structures where everybody got their own room. The master bedroom was about the size that most bedrooms are today. This is my house. It's about 600 square feet. It is not a tiny house. It is a house. A normal sized house. The total cost for the materials for my house is about 20 grand. But there's very few of you that are willing to live in a space that is that small. I'll have 3 bedrooms. One of the bedrooms is just big enough for a bed, but I'll have 3 bedrooms. My kitchen will be pretty small. It still works. Now there's tons and tons of other reasons why houses are so ridiculously expensive. But here's my question. If it meant financial freedom, would you be willing to live in a house that was under 1,000 square feet?
In today's fast-paced and ever-trendy environment, there is a pressure to keep up with the latest and trendiest items going on. Whether it is clothes, shoes, technology like our phones, computers, the newest type of watch, house. It also has to do with home renovations. Just everything that we consume becomes trendy. And because everything is trendy, things come in and out of fashion. It is feeding our appetite to consume and overconsume. Every year brings a new iPhone, a faster laptop, a sleeker smartwatch, and a car with updated tech features. And with marketing, social media, and influencer culture, we are falling for these items. It fuels the belief that in order for us to feel adequate, we have to have these upgrades, that they're not optional, they're rather necessities. But they're not. They are luxury. And the compulsion to upgrade can lead to impulse shopping, mounting debt, and the inability to build a savings and therefore wealth. In my opinion, it is time for us to pause and consider, is this upgrade worth it? Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. And if this is your first time here, hello, welcome. This is Essential Patience and I am Patience. And on this channel, we have conversations about society's impacts on our lives and our finances and how we can take back that power to live more intentional lives and make more intentional financial decisions for ourselves. And if that sounds good to you, hit the subscribe button and also hit the like button, because today we are going to have an interesting conversations about how upgrades are ruining our lives and what we can do to remove ourselves from being overly marketed towards and make better financial decisions for ourselves. What I've been seeing more recently is people comparing the cost of living now to the past, and they always like to say that we're living in such a hard time now versus in the past. Wife was staying home, the husband went to work, they lived on one income, the white picket fence, growing middle class that were having the best life ever. First of all, that is not true. I think there's so many nuances to that and what was shown versus the reality. Have you ever thought about what the details of their lives were? Do you think that their houses were as big? Oh, wait a minute. You can easily find out that the average square footage of a house back then has way more than doubled. And in America today, there are millions of empty bedrooms compared to back then when several siblings shared one room. You have a husband and wife with their 6 kids and they live in a 2 or 3 bedroom house. Today, it feels like every child should have their own bedroom for privacy purposes. What a luxury. Also, TV. Most households had one TV that they shared. Now, almost every room has a TV. I personally have only one TV, but then we go to many houses. There's a TV in the living room, in the kitchen, game room, in the parents' room, in the kids' room. Kids as young as 8 years old have TVs in their own room or some sort of screens. And let's get to the screens. Computers. Back then, many families shared one computer and they had to take turns using it. Now, everybody has a computer, a laptop, but that is not enough. What about a tablet? You see kids with laptops, tablets, and then smartphones. People have way more technology per household or even individually than the average household back in the 1950s, 60s, 70s had totally combined. And because of all this technology, they get outdated quickly. A lot of people upgrade every single year. Every single year, there are people who feel like they need to upgrade their iPads, their iPhones, their laptops, and sometimes or every few years their television, because there's a bigger 75, 90, 100-inch television that they need just to watch the football much clearer, as if people 40, 50 years ago didn't have these teeny tiny televisions that they all sat and watched and experienced as an entire family. When we compare ourselves to the past, it's not fair because we're living a very different reality from what they were living. And their money that went towards televisions and screens and other things was way less than we have decided we need to spend. I remember somebody coming in here and talking about how small my television is. And I'm like, it's fine for me. What do I need to have a huge screen for? I can see exactly what's on television. It works just fine. But for some people, they need the biggest television to watch their football games. Priorities, people, priorities. So let's talk about some of these upgrades. I'm going to give you examples, but it's way more than I could ever have time to discuss in a video. Whether it's everyday gadgets or life-altering purchases like big-time purchases, these upgrades can range from a few $100s per year to hundreds of thousands of dollars. The first one is phones. I've been talking about smartphones for a while. I got my first iPhone back in 2022. The screen on my old phone had chipped. It was the one time I think I was about to replace the screen protector, and it just hit the edge of my metal table. Every time I swiped, it felt like glass on my finger. So I definitely had to get a new phone, and I decided to switch from an Android to an iPhone. It's 2025 and I still have that phone. It's the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and I'll be keeping it till I can no longer use it. I spent over $1,000 on that phone, and if I wanted to upgrade it, I would be spending a few $100s to upgrade it because I don't get it through my phone plan. Some people get it through their phone plans where they can get upgraded phones every year or every 2 years. But guess what? You're paying so much for it. You're paying sometimes twice as much. Even if you're paying extra $50 towards the phone every single month, and then you get to replace it every 2 years, that's a lot of money when you can just buy the phone outright. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't do a payment plan. I didn't do any type of service. I just bought the phone outright. The next thing is other electronics such as laptops, tablets, and televisions. A lot of these upgrades can cost on the higher sides of a few hundreds of dollars, even thousands of dollars. I had to do this last year when my computer was crashing. I used a MacBook to actually edit my videos, and so I had to upgrade it. I was also in school and I was relying on this to take exams, to study. I don't have a tablet, so that's my only computer that I can use. I did not want to spend that money. I did not. I actually downgraded in RAM size because of even the price, but I just refused to pay for any more than I needed to. I'm keeping this computer for a long time. The other one I had since I was in college, but a lot of people just feel like because the new MacBook is out, I need to get one. Because this new technology is out, I need to get one. That's not a good way to look at life, because if that's all it takes for you to upgrade technology, you are in for a rude awakening when you realize how much money you have been putting towards these non-necessities in your entire life. Like, it adds up quickly. Next is home entertainment, about television, speakers, a whole bunch of other things that now people have, like projectors. Is really cool. And I'm not saying you can't have any of these things, but to upgrade it, which people do all the time, it costs a lot of money. But an even bigger cost is automobiles. These are the real heavy hitters. Automobiles, going up in cars. There's some people who lease cars and they go up in cars every few years, or people who just trade in their cars every few years to go up in cars. Yeah, that's a lot of money. The average cost of a new car now is around $40,000. So when you're thinking about trading in your car, sometimes that is not paid off, rolling in negative equity into your new car. It's no wonder that people are driving around with $50,000 cars and they owe like $90,000 on the loan because they keep rolling in negative equity. The best part of a car is that once it's paid off and you don't have to make those monthly payments, that's where the real value is. After the hit of depreciation and you continue to keep the car, that's where the real value is. But Americans love their cars, all things motor wheel, and they feel like I work too hard, I deserve to treat myself, I deserve this. This is where you see people paying so much more for cars and rolling in negative equity and having car payments for literally the rest of their lives. A really big one now is for home. The average cost of a house in the United States is now like $115,000 to $150,000, and it's more or less in other areas. And a big part of that is the type of houses people are looking for nowadays. Nowadays, nobody wants to start a home. The type of starter homes people had like 30, 50 15, 20 years ago, a lot of people, young people today, don't want those homes. They want to just start at like their dream house, even though they see older couples in their 40s and 50s who have their dream home. This is like their fifth house. That's why they can afford this $800,000 home or this $1 million home, because they've been building on the equity for years. But then there's also home renovations, because you're on Instagram. It's no longer what HGTV where they used to do the home renovations. Now it's Instagram. We're all looking at people renovate their houses. It looks so nice. People are taking out home equity loans to renovate the house because it improves value. Sometimes those renovations, they don't really add that much value because you can't outpace the neighborhood you live in. And these renovations can be expensive. They can cost anywhere from a few tens of thousands of dollars to well over $100,000 for a major renovation. And a lot of these are not necessities. They're symbols of wealth, or signaling wealth, or at least not wealth, riches, and signaling resources. But if everybody has it, then really, what does it signal? Approximately 7% of people in the United States have iPhones. So what does that really say, right? Everybody just has an iPhone. That doesn't mean much after all, does it? So sometimes it's not just about signaling that you have money, but it's rather not trying to feel like you are not a part of a crowd. And also because the iPhone cult likes to bully people and likes to say, oh, the green bubble, we don't want that. We want the blue bubble. It's not that serious. Honestly, sometimes I think about my Android days. That $200-300 phone, But what do we look like complaining about the cost of eggs and groceries when we have no problem standing in line for hours to get the newest iPhone, the newest laptop, the newest Apple Watch? We can't afford groceries. We're in a recession, but we spend all our money, our discretionary spending, on these other things. What do we look like talking about how we can't pay student loans, but have absolutely no problem trying to rent out a luxury apartment or get a luxury car, or a better car than we can actually afford, and even taking on monthly payments on technology and things that are decreasing and depreciating in value. But again, we say we don't have money for our bare necessities. There is clearly a financial disconnect. So let's talk about the savings crisis. Do you know why a lot of people are encouraged to buy a house? Because a house is actually considered a forced savings account. Without homes, a lot of Americans will probably never save. It is such a challenging issue for Americans to save, because despite the frequency of these non-necessities that are purchased and other non-necessities in general, Americans don't have money for emergencies. Over 50% of Americans don't have $1,000 saved up. Let that sink in. Over 50% of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency without going into debt. Additionally, about 25% of Americans can't cover a $500 emergency without going into debt. Yet, when we account for the entire population, close to 60% own an iPhone. And an iPhone averages about $1,000 for the cost. 33% of smartphone users, which includes iPhones and Androids. And by the way, I'm not saying iPhones is the only expensive one. Androids can cost over $1,000 as well. When you group all of that together, there are a lot of Americans spending a ton of money on their iPhones. And there's also 33% who make monthly payments on their iPhones rather than owning it outright. And this data suggests that a significant portion of the population prioritize expensive consumer goods over basic financial security. And if 66% are purchasing phones outright, but cannot fund a basic emergency, it reflects dangerous alignment and spending priorities. Now let's move into this next section, which I've titled The Depreciating Dilemma and Debt Cycle. It's a mouthful, but I like it. One of the biggest problems with these upgrades is that they are depreciating assets. You buy that $1,000 phone, it is not worth $1,000 within a year. Within 2 years, within 5 years, it's basically worth nothing. It's basically like a sunk cost fallacy. You're not getting any type of retained value for the most part. You can trade it in, but you still have to pay more to get the next upgrade. Basically throwing our money away. Same with a new car. You drive it off the lot, it loses like 10% of its value and it just starts depreciating. What happened in COVID was not real. Once in a lifetime type thing, at least for now, where cars actually appreciated in value. But that's not for the average person, or that's not something that happens on average. It shows you that what are we spending money on? And is that money actually investing and compounding and making more for us? or are we just losing the value entirely? And that's why I said that a house is a forced savings account, because you're actually retaining equity and more equity over time. It starts out less when you start your loan, and then as you get closer to your loan payoff, you're retaining even more equity. But we are spending so much money on things that just depreciate in value and give us nothing in return. Even when it comes to home renovations, yes, you upgrade your house, but unless you're ready to sell, by the time you might be ready to a few years later, the look and what people are looking for is probably different. Not to mention, people might actually buy the house and then just renovate it all over again. What was it all for? Unless it's something that you did because you actually like it. And when we finance all these things on credit cards or loans or credit, the result is that we are actually accumulating even more debt, because now we have to pay interest on that debt. This is stretching our budgets thin. And we're working so hard, like you said, we're working hard, so we deserve to treat ourselves. But do you deserve to treat yourself to more debt? Or do you deserve to treat yourself to savings and financial independence? And when you fall into these credit cards, personal loans, home equity loans, auto loan debt, buy now, pay later debt, even payday services, what you're essentially doing is mortgaging off a piece of your future for current short-term lived satisfaction. But you're not really retaining a lot of equity, are you? But a lot of this is media driven, especially now with social media. So let's go into the next section, which we're going to discuss the influence of social media and perception. The pressure to upgrade is not just internal. It is cultural. Social media platform showcases highlight reels of people's lives, often glamorizing material goods. Influencers are displaying new gadgets, luxury innovations, and their top-tier lifestyle. And this is creating a false perception that success is tied to spending, leading us to a comparison trap, causing everyday people to feel inadequate and pushing them into spending beyond their means to keep up or glow up. But with practical steps, we can actually break this cycle and decide not to fall into that trap, but rather do what's good for us and what's best for our future and our family's future. And breaking this cycle doesn't mean you're never going to spend on upgrades or never spend again. It just means you're going to be more intentional with the way you spend. You're going to do it consciously and ensuring that it is not breaking your budgets and your financial future in general. The first thing you want to do is ask yourself, do I need this now? And what you're essentially doing is assessing the actual need. If you don't get this new iPhone today, will your life be the same? Or are you just gonna lose it? I think most of us will be just fine. And that's just a good thing to ask yourself. What if I go without it for this year? Will I be fine? Will I be ostracized from society? No, you would do just fine. And I'm saying this as somebody whose phone is like 3 years old. Nobody has shamed me. Nobody has insulted me. I am living a great life. Which goes to the next point, which is delayed gratification. I always talk about delayed gratification. One of my favorite memory verses, no discipline seems pleasant in time, however, yields a harvest of righteousness by those who have been disciplined by it. This is from Hebrews. And the reason why I love this is because even biblically, and we could tell all the way years ago, discipline and delayed gratification has always yielded the best outcome. You don't have to upgrade now. Those things are non-necessities. Keep that money, invest it, max out your Roth IRA, contribute it to your 401k, your HSA, a down payment for your house, and you're gonna look back and you're not gonna remember the 15 iPhones you went through in your youth. You're going to be thinking about how you were able to save rather than having regret about all the money you wasted away many years into your future when you're looking to retire and you can't because you never saved enough, because you were upgrading everything in your life, but now your retirement account. Something I also want to do in the future is actually budget for replacement, because with my laptop, I know it's going to slow down. I'm probably going to need a higher RAM. So I'm going to budget for the future. It's not going to be this year. It's probably not going to be next year, maybe the year after or the one after, depending on how it's going. But I do want to budget for replacement in the future. With my phone, I don't know. I think I don't do anything too sophisticated with my phone to warrant any type of replacement for several years. But if it does slow down or something happens, I want to budget for it for the future. But that's still a good 2 years away. So as you can see, my phone I purchased in 2022. I'm gonna keep it for many, many years. The fourth thing is to prioritize emergency savings. Having at least a bare bones $1,000 emergency fund, as Dave Ramsey recommends, but then building up to a 6-month fully funded emergency fund. If your 6-month emergency fund is less than $10,000, I always would encourage you to get up to at least $10,000, because that's a really good emergency fund. It can weather a lot of storms. Most emergencies in life do not immediately demand more than $10,000. So it's a lot of money to replace a car, to pay for rent for many months, get you time that you need if you are still spending reasonably to really get on your feet. It can cover most medical bills, in co-pays. So it's a really good amount that you should try to maintain. And then once you have your emergency fund, you want to really prioritize investing in appreciating assets. You want to invest in your 401ks, your Roth IRAs, your HSAs. I have a whole video on that from earlier this year about the contribution limits. Things that are actually going to add value to your life. Things you're going to look forward years from now and really appreciate versus the iPhone you don't even remember. You may remember your first iPhone and your current one, but a lot of the ones in between, you probably don't. And the sixth one is my biggest recommendation, which is unfollow people who make you feel the need to overconsume. I am actually not against influencers or people actually marketing on social media at all. If as long as it's honest, I don't mind. But I think that it is our responsibility to understand what we can take and what we can't take. And if there's somebody who is driving you to overconsume, unfollow them until you have either reached a point where you don't mind it anymore, or you might always mind it, and that's okay. That may not be the right influencer for you to follow. But don't subject yourself to consistently being marketed towards and falling victim and prey to it. Because at the end of the day, that influencer is probably getting their cut, and you on the other hand is losing a bunch of money. So here are some of my personal opinions that I wanted to share with you about these upgrades. The first one, as I've mentioned many times over, I don't upgrade phones every year. I've had maybe 3 to 4 smartphones my entire life, and I'm almost 25. And with the exception of my current iPhone, all of them were refurbished. So I didn't get new phones, and I used them until I couldn't use it anymore before I would replace them. And it's worth the wait and investing that money elsewhere. Most people are not making money for their phones, and they don't need such a high-tech gadget in order to access regular entertainment that they actually watch. Very few people need the best of everything to actually function. The next is I avoid adding extra technology into my life if I can help it. So when I was starting graduate school, I was actually thinking about buying an iPad. And I remember thinking that this would be so good and it helped me learn. But then the question I had for myself was, what exactly would facilitate that learning that I can't do on my MacBook? And I had to ask myself, and I was calling people who I knew had iPads, and I was like, hey, what should I do? Like, what do you think? And after talking to them, they all like their iPads. But then I realized that everything except for maybe the writing and a few accessibility, this iPad would be an extra hundreds of dollars, and then it's going to be more weight added to me. And another technology I have to charge, another technology I have to insure, another technology that I have to pack and go on vacation with. It's a lot to commit to. The things I just can't do and the accessories that go with it. I'm now 70% through my master's degree, and I did with an iPad, and I'll finish with that one too. Another opinion of mine is that a lot of these products will not matter in the end. They're not going to be worth much anyway within a few years, but in the grand scheme of your life, they're going to be even more worthless. Yeah, they're going to be even more worthless. And yet they can be so detrimental to your financial success. And the last thing, I don't want to feel like I'm overcompensating for anything. I know I can afford these products, and if I wanted to upgrade it, as financially irresponsible as it would be, I could upgrade every single year. But like I said, it's financially irresponsible. And I don't need to overcompensate because there are people who have way more money than me, and there are people who are doing so much better. What am I competing with? Who am I trying to prove something to? We need to stop spending money to impress other people. Most people are too busy thinking of themselves to even think about you for more than a few seconds when they see you. They're too busy in their heads dreaming about what they can be and what they want, and their families and their children and their material items versus you. And that's the truth. And with that hard truth, I think it's time we conclude. The culture of upgrades has unfortunately normalized financial recklessness and disguising it as success. But financial freedom isn't about having the latest gadgets or the trendiest homes. It is about having the peace of mind, security, and the power to make choices that align with your values. Shifting our minds away from impulsive upgrades and towards intentional living, we can regain control of our money and our future. The real upgrade is financial independence, and that's a one-time decision, but it takes several actions to get there. So let's start taking those steps one day at a time. And with that, thank you all for watching this video. Let me know if this video added value to your life. And if it did, hit the like button so that I'll know that you enjoyed these videos and I'll make more of them. Also subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell so you do not miss out on any of my future videos. And if you know somebody who will benefit from these conversations, share this video with them. I deeply appreciate all of your support. Come back in a few days to watch my next video. Thank you all again, and I'll see you in the next one.